Good stuff.
And welcome to Edge of the Rabbit Hole. We have a great show up for you tonight. I'm Rick Secker, your host, along with my lovely co-hostess, Vanessa Holgo. Our chat shenanigator, Shauna, is not with us this evening. She got called away to work, basically because I kept her out for the whole weekend for Spook Show Con. So Donna Gorton, one of our Cheshire Cats, is handling the chat for both shows tonight. And our guest tonight is John DeSouza. John DeSouza is a former FBI agent. He's a real-life X-Files guy, and since he's been out of the FBI, he's written a number of books about the supernatural. And John, I mean, you get into extraterrestrials, UFOs, you get into conspiracy theories, a lot of different things that we could talk about. So welcome, and you're coming down the rabbit hole with us.
All right. Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here with you and Vanessa here on the Edge of the Rabbit Hole. It's really, we'll see how deep it gets tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it, Mike. I've been a fan.
You have no idea.
I've been a fan of your show for a long time.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think you had a shout out for somebody, because we showed you the chat a little bit earlier.
I wanted to shout out Fairy Queen. Awesome, awesome name. In the chat room.
She's the best. She is the best.
Yeah. Haunted Red Media's Fairy Queen, Diane Hilbert. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I want to dive right in.
Go for it.
I have something that I would love to ask John about. About 4 years ago, maybe 5, I had picked up my son from his father's, and we were driving home here in Oklahoma. And going down the same road we always went down, Mike, you know it, Sooner Road, where it turns into Class and then goes back Sooner.
Yep.
We were driving down that road, and my son and I saw it at the same time. And it was hovering. Yes, I went there. It was hovering about 500 to 1,000 feet above this large white farmhouse. And it was the size of a football field. And it was a elongated diamond shape with 3 red lights and 1 blue. There was no sound, no wind, no movement. And we watched it for nigh on 2 to 3 miles. And it just stayed there. And it wasn't, maybe it was even longer ago, maybe 5 or 6 years. It wasn't until years later when I was speaking to somebody that I was working with about that particular incident, whom I didn't know at the time of it happening. And they remembered seeing something very similar, approximately the same time, and actually had access to a website that I can't recall the name of, that keeps track of reports called in on what we would call a UFO. Does that description match anything that you would be familiar with?
I mean, it sounds very much similar in style and the parameters of what you saw in terms of the many black triangle reports all across the country, and boomerang and the giant boomerang reports, which tend to be the giant black ships that are triangular in shape, tend to be like a mile across. They as large as a mile or 2 across. They fill up the entire sky when they're seen. They seem to want to be seen by people on the ground because they're moving incredibly slow. They also have no visible thrust. In other words, no physical anything that's making them fly. So
a slow glide.
Yes, very slow glide, but no noise, no sort of conventional thrust that we need for aircraft to stay up in the air like that. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds very. But the diamond shape differentiates it a little bit, because I have not heard the diamond shape, if that's what you're saying. And you said it was a complete diamond shape.
There were 4 points to it, and the 3 main points were closer together and shorter in their distance apart, and then the very long additional point. And what it was the two shorts on the side and the long were all three red points. And the one at the very tip of the short area was the blue point. Now, this is what I find fascinating, is the underside of it wasn't black. There was nothing. It was almost as if the underside of it was made camouflage to the sky above it.
Wow.
It was very, very bizarre. And like I said, my son and I both saw it. There was no getting around it, and it was hovering above this very regular, unassuming, large white farmhouse off of Sooner Road in Norman, Oklahoma.
Wow.
And very strange.
One of the things that I noticed, because I've studied a lot of the Black Triangle cases, especially they've even had them in Illinois, a series of small towns in Illinois had these the giant Black Triangle sightings. I think it was, I don't remember what year. It was in the 90s. There was by a bunch of police departments from these small Illinois towns that all saw the same vehicle. It was a giant Black Triangle moving very slowly from town to town and being reported by many police departments who were following the thing and going from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And it was a very well documented sighting. And one thing I want to say about that is that your sighting could very well line up with the giant Black Triangles, because one factor that most people that no one thinks about with these things is that I have a belief that if these things are real extraterrestrial technology, if they're really non-terrestrial, let's just say non-terrestrial, then they would have the ability, then they're not static in nature the way that we're used to seeing aircraft. In other words, they could change shape. A triangle could just as easily shift into a diamond, and into other features. It could even make itself look like an airliner at some point if it needed to. So
these things have an ability to shapeshift?
I believe they do. Okay. Yeah. If they are truly non-terrestrial in nature, then I absolutely believe that they have the ability to shapeshift. And I also believe that it's very possible that they are themselves conscious in some manner, that they are living conscious creatures. I mean, not biological.
As an extension of whatever is flying it.
As an extension, or perhaps separated but together with whatever is flying it, perhaps not from inside, because I don't believe alien visitors need to be inside these things when they are flying with them. I don't believe they need to be.
So very similar to something like a drone, just on a much larger scale.
Yes, similar to that, except that drones aren't alive. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So we have a $10 super chat from Tom McNicholas. Thank you very much, Tom McNicholas, super chat superstar.
Oh, and thanks. Just send me my cut in the.
There we go. John's on top of it. So Tom asks, do you think aliens choose who they want to be seen by, like in Close Encounters?
Oh yeah, I absolutely believe they are. They are razor sharp in their precision on that. And that's why I use terms like they're traveling slow over populated areas because they want to be seen. With their level of tech, there is no way that it is random when they are seen by people on the ground. And I think they very carefully select those who observe them and those who connect to them. Because sometimes when you have these observations, there is a connection that's made from you as the individual to this craft, this thing that you see in the sky. And you feel that connection. You feel it on a spiritual level. And also on a spiritual level, you feel like a wonderful feeling of connection, or you feel dread. Also, it could be dread that you feel, but either way, it's something that's on a spiritual level, and that connection is made all the time by people who have these observations.
Now,
I've
watched some of your interviews, John, and you had a story, I believe it was from when you were a child, where you were being raised up out of the bed. So is that a moment in which they chose you, made their presence known to you, and it's kind of similar to what we're talking about here?
Yes, and they were selecting my family for participation in that also when I was little, and I had the contact experience with these creatures that I assumed were small children who were lifting me up out of my bed when I was just 10 years old, and they were lifting me up out of my bed, and they tried to take me through the ceiling, and I wouldn't go through. My forehead kept on bumping against the ceiling, and it was and they lowered me, and then I saw that my mother and father were on the bed, the bedroom next to mine. Door was wide open. I could see them with two more of these creatures kind of holding their hands over them and keeping them asleep, and it was very, very strange as one of the creatures on the ground looked over at me where I was, and I was able to turn my neck enough to look straight at one of them on the ground, and then I just heard the words, "He's awake." And then it was like the cord was cut, and I fell down heavy into my bed, and they were gone. They were gone, completely gone, and that was my contact experience with those creatures.
So once they believed that you were conscious, they severed everything. So what do you think that they were trying to accomplish? Because apparently they actually didn't want you to know that they were there, it sounds like, because once they knew you were awake, boom, everything ended.
Yeah, they were trying to take me. That's what they were trying to
take
do.
You? Okay, you just couldn't get out because you're bumping your head?
Yeah,
okay.
That's how it went down. And I'm not sure why or how. Some people tell me it's because of blood type, or it's because of DNA structure is different from what they had assumed maybe. But whatever the reason, they weren't able to accomplish that.
Now, this might seem strange, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you were telling the story, the thing is it didn't feel to me, and I could be very wrong, that it was meant to be destructive or that it was vicious in nature by any means. To me, it was more curiosity and almost a familial connection. And I know that sounds very strange.
No, not at all. And during the entire experience, I didn't feel any, because there's always spiritual perception in these incidences, always, whether you want it or not. And I didn't feel any malevolence from these creatures at any time. I didn't feel any, anger or anything negative from it. It felt to me like they were just there to do a job. That's it. They didn't really have any investment in it or emotional investment in it or not. They were just carrying out their duties, trying to, at least to the best of their abilities. And that was all I got from them on an emotional level.
Well, let me ask you this, because not necessarily aliens, but something similar when I was a child. And we have, real quick, $10 super chat from Jen, who says she's been missing everyone, and
Thank you.
It's $2 for me.
Yeah, there you go. And $5 super chat from Tammy Heitzman, who says, sorry, I'm late. So, but when I was a child, kind of the same age, a little bit younger, about 8 or 9 years old, and I had an experience with a shadow person in my room, interacted with me, where it actually, crossed my arms, crossed my body, and then it ran off down the hall. And some people, theorize that shadow people may be aliens, and I have a lot of different theories about them being interdimensional beings and what have you.
Yes.
What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, I love the shadow people stories, and I could tell you some also. Mm-hmm. Because those are very important, because and I would ask people to just take a look at my book, The Extraterrestrials, and just go take a look on Amazon. First 50 pages are free. Just go read those 50 pages, because I believe that alien visitors and shadow people, because alien visitors are extra dimensional. I don't believe they're physical, primarily anyway. Primarily, I don't believe they're physical. You know, sometimes when we see the physical bodies, these cadavers and alien mummies and things like that, that may be real or may not, those I believe are hybrids of some kind, which is something completely different from alien visitors. I believe that real alien visitors are primarily extra dimensional in nature. They are coming from other dimensions. They are not from our physical time and space at all. They can come here and maybe they can appear physical for short periods of time, but they themselves are not physical. So in that sense, they are similar to how did you refer to your creature, shadow person?
Shadow person, yeah.
They're similar to Slender Man and shadow people to a certain extent, which are also extra dimensional creatures. And I would argue, as I argue in my books always, I argue that Bigfoot, also a phenomena as physical, as incredibly physical as Bigfoot, is also extra dimensional in nature. That's why we don't find the cadavers in the forest. And so all of these things, I believe, exist along the same spectrum, that extra dimensional spectrum that allows them to come into being, to come into our time and space when they change their own vibration from where they're coming from in order to apparently match our physical vibration for a short period of time. In the alternative, I believe that when you were having your shadow person experience as a young child, I believe that these things also, and alien visitors as well, have the ability to transmogrify us, to change us into their realm, even though we may believe we're still physical at that moment, but we may not be. We may be, our immediate environment and ourselves may be being changed into something that is, again, extra dimensional, so that we match, and that's why we can see them, we can observe them, and we can be with them for those short periods of time. So that's another possibility as to how alien visitors and shadow people enter our realm, or appear to enter our realm, for these short periods of time, and interact with us for these short periods of time as well.
Let me bring up a really big point, just real quick,
go ahead, Vanessa.
because I know that there are people that might scoff at the idea of hybrids, but those who might do that need to realize that it was a short 20 years ago when we had thought that Neanderthals had died out due to lack of intelligence, when in fact they were bred out. So we need to understand the difference there, and that something like that can happen. Expanding on Mike's shadow person situation and on what you've experienced, shortly after the solar eclipse that we had here, what was that, last year, Mike?
Yeah.
The solar eclipse. Shortly after that, I was sitting in my car, and it was like, when I say shortly, a couple of days after, I was sitting in my car at lunch, smoking at the time and paying no mind to anybody. Perfectly blue sky, not a cloud in it, and a shadow came straight across my car where I could see it and completely blocked out the sunlight and hovered above my car and then kept going. It was not a cloud. It was not shade. It was not solid, but it was like a shadow person, but in the form of non-human. It was more like a black mist.
Wow.
Would you put that in the same category as what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect example of something that it drops out of its own dimension, its own existence, and comes temporarily just for a moment. It comes to be observed by you specifically, Vanessa. And one of the reasons for that is because these entities need to fill in their consciousness, with your conscious energy in order to exist in our realm for longer periods of time. So one of the reasons that these phenomena pick certain people to to appear to is because, number one, they know that these people are psychically able to contact with them, to observe them, and are sensitive as well. And the other is because they figure there's a very good chance of capturing the interest of that person, and so that you will run out of your car, go chase after the thing, and say, "Hey, come back! I want to commune with you. I want to be one with you. I want you to take me away on your spaceship," or whatever. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking to capture your interest, your fascination, and draw you in because they need to establish that contact with you for their own reasons.
Well, I have a question for you, John. Yeah. I have a question for you, John. And we have a bunch coming in from the chat, which is great. And also an Australian $10 super chat from Robert White, our friend from Down Under, who says, "Fourth dimensionally thinking." Thank you very much.
You guys have the best viewers.
We do.
This is awesome. Wow.
Our viewers are great. Mad Hatters, you guys are awesome. So, since you like hearing about different shadow people experiences, and I have a theory about this one, and I'm interested to get your opinion on it. So I was doing a paranormal investigation at a restaurant in Muskogee, Oklahoma called Johnny V's. We were just wrapping up. I was kind of on my own. Some people were out in the dining room area. A couple people were up in the bar just hanging out, just hanging loose. I'm doing a final kind of photo sweep of the place, walk through the main kitchen doors, and I see this black, use the other hand, Michael. I see this black just wisp just dart across the room just real quick. You can almost barely see it. It's translucent, it's kind of tall, very quick, and you hear it just bang right through the swinging metal door that's on the side of the room from the kitchen into the other part of the dining room. But it doesn't move. Everybody heard it. I was like, "Hey guys, you hear that?" "Yeah." And we started asking questions about, "Did you guys throw anything at the door?" Or nothing. It didn't move. So my theory on this has been just observing that, because it seemed like I walked into the room and almost scared it. So perhaps, this is my theory, perhaps on its plane of existence, it saw me, got scared, ran through that door, actually blew through it on its plane of existence. The door opened there. But in our plane of existence, I didn't see that. All I heard was the resonance from its plane, kind of thinking interdimensionally here. What do you think?
Yes. I think that's exactly what we need to do, is think interdimensionally, and I think that's what you did there, Mike, because I believe that's an exact representation of what happened in that situation. But you're saying the thing was non-solid when you observed it,
solid, it was translucent.
But then it opened these doors, it's like a swinging doors.
It sounded like it ran right through the swinging door. You heard it slam into it, but it didn't move. But I saw it just dart across right into it. You heard it slam, but no movement whatsoever. It's just flimsy little metal door.
Wow,
yeah.
That's
it hit with enough impact to puncture.
Oh yeah, because we're playing with the door after that, and checking. Okay, I'm hitting the door with that kind of force to make that kind of sound, and it's blowing back and forth. So.
But it needed to use that level of force in order to puncture that dimension so that it could return back to where it came from, or to where it needed to go. But just because it used the force to puncture that direction doesn't mean that it would open this direction. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. It's like puncturing through. What do we call those damn things, Mike? What are those called? Portals.
There you go.
Yeah. This whole thing, everything that we're talking about, folks, is all portals and gateways. It's all portals and gateways. Whether you're talking about alien visitors, UFOs, Slenderman, shadow people, or these other entities that sometimes are undescribable, it's all portals and wormholes. It's all it is. And so we need to recognize that. Okay, I've got to tell a shadow person,
go for
a
it.
Slenderman story real quick. I'll
go ahead.
Try to get it out. This is from a young lady who was a very dear friend of mine, who's had She's a young mother. She's had some challenges in her life, but she was like a Christian. She was a Christ follower, and so she was really cleaning up her life and taking care of her baby and had her life on a positive road. Now, then she was in a home, and she has her new baby in the crib, and she started seeing down the hallway in her mom's home. She started seeing what she could only describe as shadow man, hat man. Let's say hat man. That's what she called it. It was a very tall sort of silhouette, shadowy silhouette with a hat on, and she couldn't really make out the features because it was so dark. And she saw it, and then she would go towards it and it would disappear. And so she had that experience a couple of times, but she noticed the second time she had the experience, it was closer to her baby's room. And then she saw it, she went towards it, disappeared. Then on a third or fourth occasion, she was going in to her baby's room. The baby was crying, and the hat man, as she described it, the hat man was standing right over her baby's crib, actually with his face pointing in towards the baby, and the baby was crying. And again, she ran towards it, and again, it was dark. She didn't turn on the lights, which I guess you're supposed to do to make the phenomena disappear, supposedly, but she didn't turn on the light. She instead ran towards it as it was hovering over her baby, and the thing went right for her and grabbed her around the throat and began to choke her. And in that moment, she had a couple of downloads of realizations. She told me she realized a couple of things, and this is all going into my next book, of course. But she told me she realized that the creature never wanted her baby; it wanted her, and pretending to be after the baby was just a ruse to get her to come to him. And apparently that's what it wanted, and it was intending to kill her, and that was his purpose. And at that moment, she had another download from somewhere. She didn't know where, maybe from her guardian angel, but it told her to say something. And she said what she was told to say. As best she could, because she was being choked. She said, "You can't really do this. You have to give me a chance." I don't know what that means, but that's what she said. She said, "You have to give me a chance." And as soon as she said that, as best she could, she said that, he loosened the grip. She pushed his hand away, and she declared the authority of Jesus Christ on him, and the thing screamed and disappeared. And that was it. It was gone. Never bothered her again. So that was, and when she tells that story, it's like tears streaming down her eyes as she's remembering the horror of her baby being in danger from this creature. And it's really emotional. Actually, it's on my Facebook. If people want to look it up, go to my Facebook. And scroll down, way down. I actually recorded her telling the story on my Facebook and probably on my YouTube channel as well. But it's an amazing story, and that's one that stayed with me always.
Wow, that's a really amazing story. Real quick, Vanessa, I'll let you get into a question. Then we have a bunch from the chat room. From BD Flint, $20 super chat. She says, "Have a great show. Wish I could join you."
Oh, bless her.
John's over there calculating his cut.
I have a very strange question for you, John.
Yep. Lay it on me.
Many times during my life, I have had the same dream, epiphany, vision, psychic impression, whatever you're most comfortable calling it. And it's always of a particular place. And it's what I assume to be Atlantis. And it's very clear, very blue, we're not walking on the ground, we're floating above the ground, probably a good 12 inches. I want to say it's a utopia, but it's not, because nothing is a utopia. there is always there's levels, but it seems to me that it's a place of disconnect that I have to get to, and that I've been there before. And I was wondering if you think that this might be one of those dimensions that we're talking about, or was it a real place at some point in time? But there's no mouth movement of words. Everything is here. Everything is here. All speaking is done telepathically. Everything, the emotion, everything. And the oddest thing, there's no food.
Wow.
There's no food. There's no reason for food. It's not necessary.
I believe, a lot of our dreams, I believe, the ones that are real, they are real. And you can tell when you dream about something consistently, or it's something that has a level of reality to you that is outstanding. That is real. And very often I believe that there's very often that dimension is actually real and going on now, as it is, with another version of you being there, probably full time. And somehow it's just another version of you that is peripherally connected to this version. And that's why that data, travels back and forth to you, where you see versions of what's going on there at this time. So I think that's a very common thing. That's a very common thing, where we have connection with other versions of ourselves that are going on, that are existing in a parallel kind of dimension, that we catch little snippets of what's happening over there. And sometimes those snippets are good, and sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they're not at all. That's why I tell people, you don't want to get all up in here. Okay? You don't want to get all up in here, because I'll take you places you don't ever want to go. Because I have very distinct memories and images and what I believe to be prophetic visions of specific places. It takes both hands to count them. And there's always something going on in here. Always. There's always a message being received. There's always some type of intelligent conversation going on up in here. And it gets to be quite frustrating.
Nice.
Makes
you should
me a bitch, really.
Vanessa, I want you to take a look at my book, Clear Hearers. First 50 pages on Amazon. Just read that, and it continues the conversation we're having right now. It continues that in a greater depth about the other versions of you and what is going on with those other versions and who they're connected to and how the information flows. So that's something that you might want to take a look at. I think
More
would
than
help.
one version of me. That is terrifying.
Go figure that.
Terrifying. I'm sorry, y'all.
Nice. All right, let's get to some of these questions from down in the chat room. I know some of you have been patiently waiting. So we're going to start with Dawn, Spooky Spectacular. Do you believe, John, there are alien bases under the oceans?
Under the oceans? I don't know about under the oceans, but I definitely believe they are beneath the surface of the Earth, for instance. Whether they are operational or not, for instance, we know what is going on in Antarctica is partially extraterrestrial tech and extraterrestrial in nature. And we know that because the nations wouldn't be behaving the way that they are at Antarctica unless that was the case, unless there was something more precious there than gold and oil and minerals. And there is alien tech and alien ruins and alien bases that are maybe abandoned and maybe they're not. But the technology is definitely there, and that is why We've gone from in the last 20 years, we've gone from 5 nations being at Antarctica to now 32 nations being there, and all of them jockeying for when we're going to divvy up the technology that's been found there, and that's what we're in the middle of right now.
It kind of seems to be like the last frontier here on Earth. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Would you? Does that? Do you think that there is any connection or any type of correlation between that and what has recently happened at Tool? I think I'm saying it right. Air Force Base in Greenland.
What happened there?
A comet. No one's heard about it, but trust me, if you Google it, you're going to find it. In the same region, a comet in the last couple of months has supposedly hit Greenland. And there have also been sightings of particular creatures in the same general vicinity of Tool Air Force Base in Greenland.
Wow.
Yes. But not a word has been on, mainstream television or news about it. But yet it has happened.
Are these, there's these comets that are being seen all over the world that actually change direction. And there's these comets that have been sighted and even videotaped. You can find them on YouTube all around the planet, that are comets that look like falling stars, and then they start changing directions and going in other ways, and then people never find out what the heck that was. So that sounds like that happened at Tula Air Force Base as well. But yeah, that sounds like something fascinating. But to answer your question, the stuff under Antarctica is connected to everything that's going on around the Earth, including President Trump announcing the Space Force that he is going to be instituting, which now will be his method for being able to release some of this alien tech at his pace, and not have to say that we got it from aliens or from Antarctica. He can say, "Oh, Space Force got this." Space Force did this, and also he's announcing to the elite powers in control that he's coming for the secret space program. That he knows they've got our trillions of dollars out there, and he's gonna come and get that stuff, and he's bringing an army with him.
I was just watching recently one of your videos from last year, and you pretty much predicted this Space Force coming about.
Yeah, well, I knew that the political powers needed a way. They needed a way to actually come forward with all these space initiatives and what needed to be done with these space initiatives, like, for instance, the weaponization of outer space. That's the biggest thing going on today, under the guise of space travel, under the guise of let's defend against the alien invasion that's coming soon. That's going to be huge too, and they're going to use all these different things to get us ready for space weaponization and fake alien invasion. That's also coming. And so Space Force announced by Trump is just one element in that whole scenario that's going forward.
That's just kind of like the first step.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's one of them.
So just to be clear, you said fake alien invasion.
Yes, but the trick there is that we're going to have both. There's going to be fake alien invasion that we are getting ready for, and that is going to be, and Werner von Braun predicted that 50 years ago. He said the final great conflict that the political powers will create, the fake one, will be, hey, alien invasion, they're coming for us. We've got to put all these weapons out there in order to defend against them. And of course, those weapons are ultimately going to be used against us, not against any aliens. But there's also going to be true alien revelation, which will be real. It will be, but that, I believe, is going to be directly from benevolent aliens directly to us, to you, Vanessa, to Mike, and to me. It's going to be directly to us because they have the tech to do that.
Well,
there's been infiltration already.
I think I'm a good guest because I get both of you to talk at the same time.
Yeah. We have a lot of questions for
That's
you.
good. Yep. Go ahead, one at a time.
All right. Now, I was just going to say, it always seems like to me that in order to try to do something on this planet in a large scale, just start a war. And it seems like a lot of these wars are manufactured.
Well, pretty much all of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah, the causes for them, and unfortunately, the killing and mayhem is real that they cause, but the causations are manufactured.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Of course they are. Even something as basic as the war on terrorism, where the whole Islamic world is pitted against the Western world, and that's real. I've been involved. The terrorists are real, and the killings are real, but the causes have been very carefully manufactured by these globalist powers that have a big interest in having these jihadis, be at war with the Western world and having the Western world at war with them. So that's where we have to. Those are the elite powers in control that we need to throw off now. That we need to get rid of. And that's the war that we're in right now. That we're caught in the middle of.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Vanessa. You have a question?
Oh, I was just going to say that there has been infiltration already. I would say it's been more obvious than ever before in the last 30 years of those that are not quite the same, as the rest of us. Then again, I think some of us might be hybrids as well, of a different sort. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky for me is those who fall into those categories. Where does that put us in this war? Where does that put us? Because we have two allegiances if you're talking about physical and spiritual.
Yeah. Well, I would say, for one thing, a basic reality on the ground is that I always tell people, if they are experiencers, if they are people who've had supernatural experiences and UFO contact, alien visitor experiences, be careful who you give that information to, because there are organizations set up that basically are there just to collect your information. They will never investigate your sighting, your contact, your experience. They'll pretend to, but they will not. They will not. And they will simply gather your information, your biodata, and hand it over to deep state actors. That's what they do. And the reason for that is because the deep state is desperate to know, and people don't know this for some reason, but the deep state is desperate to register the location and the presence of every single experiencer of supernatural experiences that there is around the world. And there's a very specific reason for that. There's several reasons for that. It's like the registration of guns. They need to know who these people are, and the main reason is because we're going to have revelation from alien visitors coming up very soon. And when it happens, those of us who are experiencers, those of us who are open to this sort of experience, we're going to light up like Christmas trees. And we're going to, like you were just talking about, the hybrids and people that sort, some kind of special abilities are going to present in these individuals. It's going to be like the X-Men movies, where they use that machine to identify all the mutants around the Earth. And that's what's going to happen. We're all going to light up. We're going to light up, and the deep state, the elite powers in control, they know this is going to happen.
Do you think that all of these DNA tests that you can now do online, to find, trace your family history, where are you from, what's that? That's that 23andMe. Do you think that things like that are merely collection tools for databases?
Yes, they are. That's an
Yeah.
excellent question because people should just stay away from those things.
I haven't done it. I have to admit, I
Oh,
wanted
no,
to.
no.
I wanted to, but then I'm like, no, son, I'm good.
There's enough you can find out there about your family history without having to do DNA. I mean, it might be a little harder for some people, but yeah.
Yeah.
We have
those things are the worst idea.
Oh
ever.
yeah, terrible. We do still have a lot of questions from the chat I want to try to get to, because we are in the last quarter of our show. And there's Andrew Cox with a $10 super chat. He says, "I'm here, but I'm late." Thank you very much, Andrew. All right, so this is.
I just want to puff off that vape. That's all. I'll settle for that. Just a few puffs.
So, Candy Orton asks, John, what's your opinion on just how vulnerable or threatened the government feels about alien species and their higher intelligences?
And their higher intelligences. Yeah. People. I in 2008, I interviewed a very well-known whistleblower. He was a scientist. His name was Boyd Bushman, and he was the scientist who was in charge of examination of the materials that came out of the supposed Roswell crash of a UFO vehicle. And he also spent a great deal of time in the laboratories at Area 51, the highest level laboratories. And one of the things he would always do is that he would always say his experiences, but because he was concerned about legal consequences, he would always say, well, it wasn't me who was in the Area 51 lab. This is a technician that told me this. And then he would describe the experience that I myself could obviously tell that he had gone through the experience. And he's just, because he was facing top secret clearance examination,
right? And
he could have gotten in a lot of trouble for the stuff he was doing. So he would talk about there were these second to last chambers where the highest technicians would be allowed in, and then he would talk about the very last chamber, which was the highest level of clearance in order to get into this chamber, and no one was allowed in these last final chambers in Area 51. The final chambers actually had reptilian creatures.
Oh wow!
In them, working with the alien experiments, and there were also cadavers. Well, they assumed that they were cadavers of human beings because they were just frozen. I mean, just frozen solid, and there were lots of cadavers. And for certain limited purposes, certain technicians would be allowed in there for very short periods of time into this final chamber, and generals were allowed in there, and that's about it. But even the generals and the technicians had to keep their eyes down at all times when the reptilian creatures were there, and they would be there for short periods of time. And one of the things that he said is that if they ever looked up to look at the backs of the reptilian creatures that were there, they would hear a growl inside their heads, and the growl would indicate to them, look down again, look down, don't look at us. And they don't even know how. There were no cameras in there. They don't know how the creature would know that they would look up and see their backs, but somehow it would know that, and they would have to look down and get out of there right away, because they would be ordered out if they kept on looking at the creature. So those are the types of experiences I've been told by people who have had personal connection with bases that had actual alien presence in them, very similar to Thor, the Thor Valiant Thor creature that was present with the military-industrial complex during the time of Eisenhower.
Oh.
Did anyone ever speak of having to go through a decontamination process?
Always.
After getting one of those chambers?
Several times, because every level you had to go, and we're talking about 3 or 4 levels of clearance, where fewer and fewer people were allowed to go to the next level, and you did all your work in that secondary level, and almost no work got done in the third level. And then the final level, it was like you were not allowed to go into that. And each level, there had to be decontamination procedures over and over again. And the final decontamination level had alien tech attached to it, so that it was even more sophisticated than any of our decontamination levels, procedures.
Okay. Let me grab another question here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to them all, but we'll try. We shall try. This is from Katie Palmer. Kind of straightforward. What do you think the aliens want with us?
They want connection with us. They want a deep, real, significant connection to us. And what's funny about that is that's true whether you're talking about either of the two groups, because there's only two groups of aliens that matter. The two groups, people talk about all the races, the many races and so forth. There's only two groups that matter. One group is the malevolent aliens, the malevolent ones that want nothing but the worst things for us, that despise human life. Those are the ones that are aligned with the elite powers in control, the globalist powers that dominate much of the earth that we're trying to overthrow right now. And the second group of aliens are the benevolent ones, the ones that I have interviewed many witnesses who've had their diseases cured by them, who've been uplifted, who've been given special abilities by them, and who are considered like brothers by them, brothers that they're trying to help. And those are the only two groups of aliens that really matter. But what's funny is both groups seek connection with us because we have something that's more precious than gold, something that apparently they don't have. And that is some sort of a connection back into the eternal mind, into the creator force. We have a special connection that is eternal. It is spiritual. It is indestructible. The soul is a part of it, but it involves the soul, the spirit. It involves everything that is us. And this connection, for some reason, these alien visitors, they don't have that connection. So they could have lifespans that are like 10,000 years or 20,000 years by our time, by our measurement of time. But if they die, it's real death. And we don't have that. We do not have that. And they do. And that is one of the reasons. That's the main reason why they seek connection to us so much.
Interesting.
So in very simple terms, immortality.
Yeah.
Of the soul.
That's a portion. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
This is from Chuck Banks from Beyond the Light Network, which we simulcast on Spreaker, which
Nice.
I don't think we're actually simulcasting a Spreaker tonight because I think they were taking a week off or whatever was going on. But Beyond the Light Network, we usually are. He asked, John, how many hybrids do you think are walking among us?
There's no way to count. I think it's very possible that, and also it's a fluid situation, because I believe that much of the hybrid situation can be in and out. It can be someone who is a hybrid can revert back to a pure form at any time. So I think there's no way to calculate how many hybrids there are among us. And I'd also like to point out that some hybrids that exist among us are not partially human. They can be hybrids of other things. And that's because I do a lot of presentations and a lot of work with the what's called the alien mummies that present all over the world, like the Atacama. This is Google. You have to Google this material. It's like the Atacama alien mummy, the Atacama 6-inch mummy from northern Chile, or the Kishtim alien mummy from Russia. And these things are all recent cadavers. They're not like from 1,000 years ago or something. Or the Gaia Maria mummy with the 3 fingers and the 3 toes, that are not these mummies. These are not human. It doesn't matter what BS the laboratories came back with. Those mummies are not human. I'm here to tell you that because I know that is a fact. So these mummies, though, are not representations of something that was living. These mummies are representations of things that are alive with us and reportedly living beneath the earth, the surface of the earth, right now in northern Chile, in eastern Russia, in South America. They're called the duendes in South America. They're called, in the UK, they're called the little people. They're called the fairies. And these things apparently are now, they used to live up on the surface with us, but apparently they're living beneath the earth now. And so this is something that I present wherever I go, because I'm getting so much reporting about this from all over the world now, that people, so like I was saying, some of these hybrids are not, human hybrids. They can be these other races of things that apparently aren't really aliens. They are something else, but they're non-human. They are non-human creatures, and they're living on the earth with us right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And I think something that's kind of troubling is whenever they provide these DNA tests back, that the preliminary looks like it's something else. But then whenever the final comes back, it's always just straight up human.
Yeah. Well, that's the con game that they've been running for like the last 100 years. And they've been doing this over and over again. They did it with the Paracas skulls. These skulls that came out of Central America that are 5 times the size of a human cranium, and they had plenty of DNA material in them, and they did the preliminary results at these labs, and the preliminary results always say, oh yeah, it looks non-human, probably non-human.
Yep.
Look, we're going to come up with non-human finding on this, and they say, but let's do the deep testing. And they do the deep testing. And they never show you the deep testing. They won't post it because they don't want that double checked. But then they give you that conclusion. They give, after a couple of years of the nuclear testing, they give you that little 1-page typed page. And the typed page always says the same thing. It says, forget about all the testing we did. The thing is just human. It's all human. It's nothing to do with anything else. It's human. Well, if it's human, my eye. So don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what your eyes tell you. Believe what this lab test tells you. And meanwhile, that's how they get their renewal for their license for the next year, because that lab is not going to get its license renewed if they tell you the truth. If they tell you that is a non-human species, so they're not going to do that.
Yeah, if they buck conventional science too much, they're not going to get their funding. So I think that's their big concern.
Too.
Yeah.
That too, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No funding, no peer review, no awards.
Can't pay the bills.
Yeah. Then where are they going to go?
Right.
Where are they going to go? That's what it's all about.
So a couple other questions that we'll take. Like I said, we're probably not going to be able to get to all of these, but Zippy asked an interesting question. John.
Zippy.
Zippy Davis. Can you get in trouble for talking about all these different things since you're an ex-FBI agent?
No, they don't care. Couldn't care less. They're just like, go do whatever, as long as you don't talk about the politicians and what they do, and in their off hours and give away, Harry Truman's hat size. That's an old joke.
Yeah, but you would have been involved. I know you were involved in like investigations of like the World Trade Center bombing back in the early 90s. Yeah. So isn't some of that classified that you're actually not allowed to talk about still?
Well, most of the cases that I worked, like the Unabomber, the World Trade Center bombings back then, and the 9/11, terrorist acts also, everything is like public with those things. So, because they were all like super high profile cases, especially the terrorism cases. So because of that, it's all public material. It's all like out in the open. It's all been in court. It's all been in the New York Times every day for like a year. So there really isn't very much that's classified with those cases.
So there's enough that's already out there that
exactly.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. This is actually kind of personal for me because I don't know all the different cases that you were involved with back then. And even if you weren't, maybe you have an opinion. TWA Flight 800. I don't know if you worked on that at all, but do you at least have an opinion on that?
I did.
Did you? Okay. I had a cousin on that flight, Larkin Dwyer.
Shoot. I'm so sorry to hear that.
So I just wondering about your opinion on that.
Yeah. Wow, you actually hit on something. It's amazing. You actually hit on like the one thing that I can't comment on too much because that's the one thing that I worked on actually, and that I'll just tell you this. I'll just tell you this, and this is something that every FBI agent that worked on that case knows, because as we were working it, we felt like something was wrong. We felt like we weren't being allowed to get to really what really was going on, and that we were being prevented. So all I can tell you on that case is my own philosophy, which is don't trust the government and don't trust anything the government says. That's what I would opine.
In other words, go with your gut, Mike.
Yeah.
What your common sense says is what is real.
Right.
That is what I preach in everything that I do, and and don't trust the authorities, whether they're scientific authorities, even if they've got men in lab coats standing up and telling you, no, this is what happened. This is definitely what happened. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust reality. Gaslighting us, gaslighting every one of us. All I can say on that is, what your common sense tells you is what is the truth. That's what I would say.
All right. Well, thank you. So one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll go with the one from Donna Gorton, our Cheshire Cat, who's working so hard in the chat tonight. She wants to know, disclosure, how much is geared toward enlightenment of the human race versus conquering us?
And say
I'll repeat it. She says, disclosure, how much is geared toward enlightenment of the human race versus conquering us?
Well, I don't see that disclosure is a real thing. I don't think that disclosure is because disclosure it connotes sort of like going to the government and begging the government for some information on UFOs, like going and sitting in Washington D.C. and saying, hey, you guys better tell us what's going on, and they don't have the information. They don't have anything. They've got mountains of data. I mean, CIA, FBI has mountains on data on UFOs. You can easily just go on vault.fbi.gov, and you could see hundreds, thousands of documents on UFOs, alien visitors, and it's all there. It's available, and anybody can see that stuff. But they don't have the agenda. They don't have the insight on what alien visitors want, what they're going to do, and what their goals are for us. So disclosure is not a real thing. And if you're not wary, if you're not careful, you can be sucked in by one of the giant psychological operations like To the Stars Academy with their big circus of CIA and Pentagon officials that are out there telling us that they're going to reveal what's really going on with UFOs, and they're nothing more than just part of the deep state trying to take control back, direct control back of ufology. That's all they're trying to do. So yeah, disclosure I don't believe is a real thing.
Okay. All right, John. How can everybody find you?
Well, you find me on my Facebook, John DeSouza Facebook. Also, my YouTube channel on under John DeSouza. Also, my books on Amazon. You just search John DeSouza on Amazon. You can see all my books, the Extradimensionals in particular, where I explain who alien visitors are, according to the investigative cases that I've seen, and what they want from you, and why you're so important to them, and what's going on with them. Also, my website, johnthamabooks.com as well.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a fantastic show, John. Really appreciate you coming on. We're going to have to bring you back because we have a lot of more questions to go through. So our viewers are very, very interested in what you have to say.
Oh, thanks so much, Mike. That is awesome. And I'm also supposed to, I'll get in big trouble if I don't, I'm supposed to mention I have a big conference coming up, Portal to Ascension in Irvine, California, October 5th to 7th, 2018. And that's going to be a huge conference where we're going to have a lot of breaking news about all these topics that we've been talking about with Grant Cameron and Paola Harris, Robert Schock, Billy Carson, Jordan Sather, and Teresa Yanaros. A lot of big people there. That's going to be huge.
Fantastic. Well, I hope some of our Mad Hatters can make it out there. That would definitely be a excellent conference.
Fairy Queen, I want you to go.
Fairy Queen is probably the furthest place from Irvine, California. She's in Rhode Island.
Oh,
that's a flight right there.
That's a flight. Yeah,
it's being teleconferenced. It's being
okay.
We got
Very cool.
So we're gonna work something out with them.
We check out the teleconference then. Okay, I'd be up for that.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, John. We'll go ahead and let you go, and then we'll get to all of our shout outs. So you have a great day.
Thank you, John.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. Thanks, Mike. It's been awesome.
Thanks, John.
Awesome.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Great audience. Thanks.
Okay, well, wow, that was a very, very interesting show. So
That was a great show.
It was, and that's one that could have gone a couple hours. He's got a ton of information, and you guys had a ton of questions, and I apologize for not getting to all of them. But we'll bring them back, and you just re-ask the questions, and yeah, it was good. Thank you, John. So, okay, let's get to shout-outs, and real quick, everybody, I saw your comments in there about my cousin. I do appreciate that. So she was 11 years old. She was a violinist, very accomplished violinist, and it was her first trip away from home, going to France to visit a friend, and then that happened. So if the government does do this, because there's conspiracy theories about this particular flight, because people saw missiles hit it. Of course, there's theories about 9/11 and different tragedies like that. It's not just the life that's taken there; it's all the other lives involved too. Because they're second cousins. My father's cousin, and all that relationship there, but her parents divorced afterwards. They both grew into a deep depression. They already had one child that was special needs, a little bit older than Larkin. Then it was basically his best friend, and so everybody was just so deeply devastated. So it's not just the life that's taken; it's everybody else's lives that are destroyed too. So. That just ended there. So let's get to the shout-outs. And it's ironic that that's the one he can't talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, that tells you everything right there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, Super Chat Superstars. We had quite a few tonight. Really do appreciate it. Tom McNicholas, Jen, Tammy Heitzman, Robert White, B.D. Flynn, and Andrew Cox. Thank you very much for all of the super chats, and I really do appreciate it tonight, guys. That is fantastic. So let's get to the other shout-outs. Of course, Donna Gordon, our Cheshire Cat in the house, taking care of all the chat. Really do appreciate you feeding me all the questions, even though we couldn't get to all of them. We'll do it again. We'll definitely do it again. Excuse me. Let's see. Tracy Christian is in the house. Thank you, Tracy, for joining us tonight. Zoe Small, thank you very much. Fungi, thank you as well. Robert White, there you are. Greg Renkin, thank you as well. There's Cheryl Midkiff, thanks so much. April M. Wimigwans, thank you again. Oh, it's not scrolling. Oh, there we go. Okay. BPI, Gwen is in the house. Thank you, Gwen. Appreciate that. And there's Tammy Heitzman and Jen K. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Pamela Rainey, thank you as well. Candy Orton, and a lot of you are going to have had questions. I was about to say thank you, Candy, for the question. Pamela, yeah, a lot of you had questions, which was great. Beyond the Light Network, Chuck. Okay, so Chuck, I saw the correction there that you are simulcasting. I thought I could have swore I saw somewhere on Facebook that Spreaker wasn't being done tonight, so I apologize for that. We're simulcasting Beyond the Light Network on Spreaker. There we go. Also on Periscope. So, all right. There's Tim Schoen. Thank you very much, Tim. Jill Nimchinsky, thank you very much, and Friend Molino, thank you as well. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Shay Carroll, thanks for joining us tonight, and for all of the retweets and everything out there on Twitter. Unique Annie, thanks for joining us tonight, Annie. Do appreciate that. And coming over from Noreen's channel. Let's see, there's Katie Palmer. Thank you very much. Dustin Samario, thanks for joining us tonight, Dustin. Sorry I didn't get to your question. And there is Zippy Davis, one of our Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons. So, Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons, because I should have gotten to it earlier. But we have Tom McNicholas, B3 Airspace, Zippy Davis, BD Flint, Pamela Queen, and Andrew Cox. There we go. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Let's see. Who else do we have in the house tonight? Well, Fairy Queen. John really liked your name, Diane. So Diane Hilbert. There you go. Who else is in here tonight? So I saw Among Stars in here earlier, which go check out their band, Among Stars. Play them on Enigma Underground Radio. Good stuff. Good stuff. There's Sean Oldsmith. Thanks for joining us tonight. Commander Gaming, Connor. Thanks for coming in, getting a shout out. Imla Buddha 61. Thanks for joining us again. And who else? Who else? Ren Oak. Hey, good to see you again, Ren. I think it's been a little while. Good to see you. Sharon Lane, thank you for joining us as well. And there's Sandy Miller. Hey, Sandy, good to see you. Now, there are a lot of people in the chat tonight. So, yeah, I'm going to scroll all the way back down. All right, anybody else? There's Betty and Wayne. Hey, Betty and Wayne, thank you very much. The Langies. And there's Luli Tubi. Hey, Luli. And anybody else? There's Linda Miller. Cool. And Veronica Flores, thanks for joining us tonight. And I think that's it for the shout-outs on this show. Of course, we'll do more shout-outs again on Inside the Upside Down, in which we will be discussing Slender Man. So, since the movie is coming out, let's go ahead and talk about it. So, the myth, the lore, the legends, the truth, and even the tragedies that have occurred from people harming others in his name. So, we'll cover it all. And Donna is saying, get some sleep, Vanessa.
I'm sorry. I'm exhausted.
yeah, I get it. It's all right. So we'll go ahead. We'll close this one out. We'll switch it out. Turn on the lights. And hey, next week we should be out in that building over there. So I know right now I just couldn't put up. You see, there's no big banner. I just didn't have time to put all that stuff back up. So,
but I'll still be sitting right here.
So Vanessa will still be sitting right there. All right. Well, you got to take out Cha Cha.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
I gotta go, y'all. I love y'all.
Everybody,
Mwah.
You have a great night. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.